Now, in its third week, the war has shaken global stability, spiked oil prices to nearly $120 a barrel at peak, and cost the U.S. military over $11 billion in its first week alone. Welcome to this breakdown of the ongoing U.S.-Israel war against Iran, a conflict that began on February 28, 2026, with surprise airstrikes that killed Iran's Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. Is this a necessary preemptive strike or a dangerous miscalculation? We'll explore the escalation, the mounting costs, the diplomatic off-ramps, and China's emerging role as mediator. I'm Adrian Caldwell, and this is your 10-minute deep dive.
The conflict erupted on February 28, 2026, when the United States and Israel launched coordinated surprise airstrikes across Iran, killing Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei and dozens of other officials, and targeting nuclear facilities, military infrastructure, and communications networks. President Trump called it a preemptive necessity, citing Iran's nuclear program and missile threats. Critics counter that no public intelligence showed an imminent attack, and crucially, diplomacy was actively underway. Just one day before the strikes, Oman's foreign minister announced a breakthrough had been reached in nuclear talks, with Iran agreeing to never stockpile enriched uranium and to full IAEA verification. A new round of negotiations had been scheduled for March 2nd. It never happened. Iran retaliated swiftly and broadly, closing the Strait of Hormuz, launching waves of drones and ballistic missiles at U.S. bases across the region, striking Gulf states including Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE, and activating Hezbollah in Lebanon, opening a second front. By the end of 2 weeks, the U.S. had struck more than 6,000 targets inside Iran, more than 90 Iranian vessels, including over 30 mine-laying ships, had been destroyed. On March 8th, Mojtaba Khamenei was confirmed as Iran's new supreme leader, vowing to keep the strait closed and to continue strikes on any base used by U.S. forces. This is a multi-front war, and it's only 2 weeks old.
Has America blundered into another Middle East quagmire? Supporters of the strikes argue they set back Iran's nuclear program significantly, degraded its conventional military and proxy networks, and aligned with Gulf state interests that had long feared and emboldened Tehran. If Iran's government ultimately collapses under the pressure, history might judge the decision differently.
But the case against is substantial. There was no public intelligence indicating an imminent Iranian attack, and again, nuclear diplomacy had been actively progressing just days before the bombs fell. The United Nations condemned the strikes as unlawful aggression, and as of now, 56% of Americans oppose the war, according to an NPR/PBS/Marist poll. That's up from 52% in the first week. The parallels to the 2003 Iraq invasion are hard to ignore. Overconfidence in air power leading to regime change with no plan for what comes after. As of today, there is no clear endgame. Iran's new supreme leader is vowing to fight on, and the conflict has already widened to Lebanon and 6 Gulf states.
Several unknowns could flip the script entirely. Does Iran have underground nuclear facilities that survived the strikes? Could it now accelerate weapons development, seeing the strikes as proof that conventional deterrence failed? Will protests inside Iran tip into an uprising, or will the IRGC use the foreign attack to consolidate power? And how far do proxy escalations spread? Into Yemen with the Houthis, or beyond the region?
Now the costs. Financially, the Pentagon burned through $5.6 billion in munitions in just the first 2 days, and the first full week of operations topped $11.3 billion, according to a Pentagon briefing to lawmakers. Oil has spiked to nearly $120 a barrel at its peak. The International Energy Agency has released 400 million barrels of emergency reserves, the largest release in history, and American gas prices have jumped 55 cents per gallon compared to this time last year. Mortgage rates are rising. Stock markets are falling. The human cost is severe. 13 U.S. service members are dead, 7 by enemy fire, and 6 who perished when a KC-135 refueling aircraft went down in western Iraq on March 12th. Around 140 more Americans have been wounded. In Iran, over 1,444 people have been confirmed killed and more than 18,000 injured, with 25 hospitals damaged and 9 out of service. In Lebanon, 773 are dead and 830,000 displaced. Across the Gulf states, at least 16 more lives have been lost. One U.S. airstrike, likely a targeting error, hit a school in Iran and killed over 100 children, and up to 3.2 million people inside Iran are now displaced, according to the UN. The echoes of Iraq and its trillion-dollar multi-decade fallout are loud.
So how does this end? Iran's President Pezeshkian has publicly outlined 3 conditions for stopping the war: recognition of Iran's legitimate rights, payment of reparations, and firm international guarantees against future attacks. That's a tough starting position, but it is a starting position. The important distinction is that Pezeshkian, the civilian president, appears more open to diplomacy, and the IRGC, which remains publicly defiant. That split could be an opening.
The most realistic pathway runs through intermediaries. Oman and Switzerland are the most credible channels. Oman had already helped broker the nuclear talks that were days from a breakthrough. A short-term ceasefire, centered on reopening the Strait of Hormuz and halting airstrikes, is the necessary first step. From there, indirect talks on nuclear limits, proxy disarmament, and security guarantees could build towards something more lasting. One new factor? Some senior regional officials now tell reporters they believe the U.S. and Israel may end the war unilaterally, without a negotiated deal, and that Iran and its proxies will then shift to a prolonged campaign of intermittent fire. That would be the worst of all worlds: no peace, no victory, just an indefinite low-grade war. Watch for signs of back-channel contact through Oman or Switzerland. If those channels go quiet, that's when escalation risk rises most sharply.
Into this crisis steps China, positioning itself as the responsible great power the U.S. is not. Foreign Minister Wang Yi declared this a war that should never have happened, and from day one, Beijing called for an immediate ceasefire. Special Envoy Jai Jun launched a regional shuttle diplomacy tour in the first week of March, meeting Saudi Arabia's foreign minister in Riyadh and engaging Gulf Cooperation Council officials. China has also evacuated more than 3,000 of its nationals from Iran.
Beijing's motivations are clear. Iran is its largest oil supplier, a key node in the Belt and Road Initiative, and a symbolic partner. They signed a 25-year strategic agreement just last year, protecting $4 billion in regional investments and projecting an image as a global stabilizing power are both served by peacemaking. But the limitations are equally clear. The Trump administration has shown no interest in Chinese mediation. China has no military presence in the region to enforce a ceasefire, and Beijing is notably cautious. Chinese scholars note that Jai Jun's mission offered Iran's new supreme leader no obvious political backing, suggesting Beijing is assessing whether Mojtaba Khamenei will pursue nuclear weapons before fully committing its diplomatic capital. China is playing a longer game here, and it may be content to watch the U.S. absorb the costs of a conflict it opposed from the start.
This war's outcome hinges on diplomacy, exhaustion, and decisions being made out now in Washington, Tehran, Riyadh, and Beijing. Mistake or masterstroke? The answer isn't clear yet, but the costs are already very real. Drop your thoughts in the comments, like the video, and subscribe for updates as this develops. And thanks for watching.